Ebert review. Danny DeVito planning Arnold Schwarzenegger's blessed event in Junior. Macaulay Culkin goes on a magical quest in The Pagemaster. And Detective Keenan Ivory Wayans breaks an explosive case in A Lowdown Dirty Shame.
What do you think?
Couldn't find one with a parrot on it?
Arnold Schwarzenegger is having a baby, and Danny DeVito is sort of the proud papa in the new comedy Junior. It's one of 5 new films we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. Also coming up, action with Keenan Ivory Wayans, a children's movie with Macaulay Culkin, and Jennifer Jason Leigh as Dorothy Parker. I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune. Cute is the word that describes Junior. In fact, the word cute might have been invented just to describe Junior, with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito together again, this time as colleagues who have developed a pregnancy drug that Arnold has taken. Your eyes may be drawn to Schwarzenegger in this scene, but DeVito's street-smart persona makes the comedy work, I think.
The convention is tonight?
Yeah. I told you it was tonight.
Oh, Larry, please take me with you.
No. No. You stay home. Get back in bed and just take it easy.
No, Larry, you don't understand.
I do understand. No.
Please, listen to me.
No. It's bad for business.
I'm pregnant and all alone.
Oh, will you stop saying that? Look, you're not pregnant. You got to think of this as an experiment. I mean, think of it like you swallowed a piece of gum. Tiny piece. Dentine.
Complicating the pregnancy is that the egg in the equation comes from the laboratory of another researcher, a doctor played by Emma Thompson, who proves to be a fine physical comedian, playing a shy klutz.
Yes, sir. No, wait.
More predictable are the film's TV sitcom scenes like this one, enlivened again, I think, by Danny DeVito's presence.
I hate my body.
Looking prosperous there.
The pants are a little loose around the waist.
I can take them in.
Better leave room to grow.
Junior is nothing but one scene after another that wants to make us smile. The situations are expected, but the casting makes it work. 3 top-flight actors in a cute, lightweight comedy. Just one point. Why are we getting men playing at being women these days? First with Mrs. Doubtfire and now Junior. In the case of Arnold Schwarzenegger, maybe he's bored playing a tough guy. Maybe a lot of us are bored seeing tough guys in the movies.
Well, I don't know if that's the case, Gene, but I do know that Arnold Schwarzenegger is a comic actor, and that's something that's often overlooked about him. And one of his secrets is he knows exactly who he is and how he can present himself. And in this movie, he wisely plays it very straight. You can never catch him going for a laugh. He's just this earnest guy who finds out he's pregnant and then begins to develop these tender maternal instincts, and he knows that that's intrinsically funny, so by wisely playing it just like that, he makes it work.
Well, it's just interesting to me that in this year of Forrest Gump, here we have, and again with Mrs. Doubtfire, this tender side is coming out and people are embracing it.
But Gene, you could also find a trend with 75 movies where people with machine guns blew each other up, so that would be a trend too.
I'm not aware of how popular any of them are. These are cascadingly popular pictures, and Junior will, I'm sure will be.
I think in the case of Junior, we'll wait till it opens to see how cascadingly popular it is.
All right.
Although I'm sure you're right.
Thanks.
Next movie, and our next movie is named A Lowdown Dirty Shame, with Keenan Ivory Wayans, who wrote and directed this movie and stars in it, and in the process seems to have misplaced all of the cleverness and wit that he used on television for In Living Color. This is an exhausted retread of tired old ideas, a movie he could have made on automatic pilot, and apparently he did. Here's the setup, which we have seen in many other movies. Yes, it's the bad guys in the hotel room with the suitcase full of stolen loot, with the hero bursting in to steal it from them.
You boys don't want to mess with me. I just got fired from the post office. I could flip out and kill everybody in this room.
Wayans plays a private eye named Shame. One of the bright spots in the movie is the performance by Jada Pinkett as Peaches, who is Shame's secretary and wants to be both his sidekick and his girlfriend.
We have nothing in common.
Oh, now, how you gonna sit up there and say something like that?
Well, what about boxing? We both love boxing.
Okay. Who's the greatest heavyweight of all times?
Tyson.
Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is the greatest heavyweight of all time.
That's right.
You telling me Mike Tyson can beat Muhammad Ali?
That's right.
Mike Tyson can't spell Muhammad Ali.
Sally Richardson plays an old lover of Shame's who is now mixed up in a criminal scheme. Peaches keeps a wary eye on her.
You hurt Shame again? And you better watch your back.
The movie is filled with wall-to-wall violence and lots of guns, but there is one clever action sequence set in a sporting goods store. And that scene ends with a nice surprise, but the real surprise in A Low Down Dirty Shame is that Keenen Ivory Wayans would have even wanted to make this movie, which tries at times to be a comedy, but has so much nonstop violence that the laughs get drowned out. And the plot and dialogue are recycled from hundreds of other films. This is a movie that is completely unnecessary. Wayans is too talented to waste his time on this.
And waste our time on this.
Yes.
You know, you have a certain expectation that somebody is going to come to play in the movies and write a story and do something. This film, the reason why Jada Pinkett stands out is because I think, frankly, they did not have a story at all, and so the two of them just sat there and improvised stuff and then do a little insult comedy back and forth. This is not a picture that should have gone to camera. It was not prepared.
And furthermore, Wayans is not really protecting his career by making a movie like this because his name is kind of a brand name for people. They associate it with a certain level of intelligence and wit, and he's kind of cool. You wouldn't think that he would do something this stupid.
A very sloppy piece of work. Coming up next, Macaulay Culkin goes to the library, and suddenly he's the star of his own animated feature. The Pagemaster is next.
What is this?
It's a library card.
I'm a book, honey. I can read.
I'm okay. I'm okay. Ah! No, I'm not.
That's Macaulay Culkin, of course, playing a fearful boy who faces down his fears through an adventure in reading in The Pagemaster. And the last thing I want to do is knock a movie that endorses reading. But I can't really recommend The Pagemaster. It's so flimsy, with Culkin going to the library where a fantasy world is unleashed for him, courtesy of librarian Christopher Lloyd.
You're in need of a fantasy. Brave knights, mythical fairies, ferocious dragons.
His adventures begin with a beautiful scene where the library and all of its contents, including Culkin and the librarian, become animated.
Oh. Wow. Huh? I'm a cartoon.
You are an illustration.
3 different generic books take Culkin along for a ride, including a book called Adventure, with a voice by Patrick Stewart from the Star Trek series. Now, this is a terrific premise, but there's not much of a payoff.
You fiction or non-fiction?
Richard Tyler.
What kind of a book would that be?
I'm not a book.
Another book is called Fantasy, with a voice by the omnipresent Whoopi Goldberg. I think she's overexposed in the movies these days. Again, I wanted a story more than just a character talking.
What are you doing grabbing me like that and messing up my pantyhose? Now I gotta straighten out my Little Mermaid underwear.
And the 3rd book is called Horror. It's nicely drawn, but this movie is all introduction and very little follow-through.
You mustn't judge a book by its cover. Look, he's smiling.
Now, after we meet all of these characters, The Pagemaster wraps itself up so quickly I was really surprised, and I could only ask, is that all there is? This is such a wonderful idea for a film. I wish the payoff in story were there. It just wasn't for me.
You know, you said this movie endorses reading, and it really doesn't, because it does take Moby Dick and Treasure Island and Jekyll and Hyde and turns them basically into video arcade games where the little kid's job is to kind of jump around and fight with the bad guys and come out in one piece. It has nothing to do with the real content of those books.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that it's set in a library, and so the sort of the impulse there. But boy, what a letdown.
The message is go to a library and you can have as much fun as with your computer games. Another thing I didn't like, the animation is very dark and dreary. Did you notice that? It's like you're looking at it through a dirty window or something. The colors didn't pop up.
I was just more stunned when the movie ended. Didn't you think,
what's this? What's this? Yeah, of course, they're bringing it out as a CD-ROM game the same day they bring it out as a movie.
Well, maybe that's the level of thought that went into the project, is that make enough to sell the game, because there isn't a full story here.
A marketing project rather than a serious movie. When we come back, Jennifer Jason Leigh plays Dorothy Parker, who made a lot of people laugh, but she herself was not often one of them.
Because I'm thirsty.
Did you know that I sold a short story that took months to write? That's fiction, for your information.
My low brow is not congenital, Dot. I saw it. I had a henpecked husband living in the suburbs. Seemed a lot like Benchley.
Jennifer Jason Leigh stars there as Dorothy Parker, the legendary wit who charmed and shocked New York in the 1920s. She meets her future lover, Charles MacArthur, played by Matthew Broderick in that scene from Mrs. Parker and the Vicious Circle, a new film by Alan Rudolph about a time when all of America appeared to eavesdrop on the witty conversation around a table in the New York hotel dining room where everyone seemed to specialize in put-downs and one-liners. All was brittle laughter and the tinkle of ice and cocktail glasses around the Algonquin round table, but there was a private side to Dorothy Parker and her best friend, the humorist Robert Benchley. They were probably in love, but they married other people and did most of their lovemaking with one-liners.
Rent an office together. Move in. We'll cheer each other on. You can try your dainty-handed fiction, and I'll start my history of the Queen Anne humorists. Both of them.
That's Campbell Scott as Benchley, and in this scene, his wife, played by Jennifer Beals, seems to sort of understand the platonic relationship between these two neurotic people.
It's really so kind of you letting Robert sleep over when he works late. Why, sometimes I think you see more of him than I do.
I'm always very modest. You know that, Gertrude.
Well, it must be wonderful to never have babies waking you up. They don't allow babies in dormitories. Well, not that there's anything wrong with babies. Oh, if there were, Gertrude, you'd be arrested by now.
One of Parker's liaisons, played here by Stephen Baldwin, meets her at a garden party and soon discovers why she had few long-term romances with men.
Oh, don't worry, Roger. I don't review rehearsals.
There are times when Mrs. Parker in the Vicious Circle sounds like it was compiled from Bartlett's familiar quotations, but there are other times, many of them, when we sense the real pain and loneliness of this talented, alcoholic outsider who uses her quick mind and biting tongue to keep the world at arm's length. It's a wonderful performance by Jennifer Jason Leigh, who gets it all in the voice, that dry, sad, sarcastic voice that comes from the little woman in the corner who hardly ever smiles. In legend, the Algonquin Round Table was one long party of highballs and hilarity, but this film shows another side and helps explain why some of those famous one-liners really did hurt.
You know what I like about this picture, Roger, is that it dares not to make her a heroic figure. The final sequence in this film is really touching and also lifelike when we see how her life comes to conclusion.
Yes.
And I also like the fact, and we know people like this, people who are more comfortable drinking and have all the emotions of anyone else, but the drinking keeps them from engaging someone else. And I see, we all know people like this, and you see them played beautifully here. And it's an interesting...
And she sits there, they all do, because they all drink, and they all use these one-liners to put on the appearance of having this great party. And the problem is, no one is having very much fun at the party, except for the people who read about it in the newspapers, because they don't have a hangover the next morning when they're reading all these great one-liners.
Yeah. It's a good film, and as you mentioned, the performance here, it's a very risky performance.
Yes, it is.
She's taking chances here. She could look very bad if her attack in playing this character doesn't work right, and I think she comes through it in fine shape. Coming up next, a series of random events propels a beautiful young woman toward love in Red. Our next film, called Red, is something special, the conclusion of a magnificent three-part work by director Krzysztof Kieslowski, a project very much about the everyday happenstance of life, here ultimately bringing together characters from the two other films in the trilogy, Blue and White. The story this time, a Swiss model, played by Irene Jacob, hits a dog belonging to a reclusive, eavesdropping judge, Jean-Louis Trintignant, and when she brings the injured animal to him, he's indifferent to the dog and seemingly to her.
Rita, un chien berger.
C'est possible. Elle a disparu hier.
Elle est sur la banquette arrière de ma voiture, vivante. Je sais pas ce qu'il faut faire.
Meanwhile, the model's mind is adrift also, at least from the photographer, who is infatuated with her.
Tu penses à qui?
C'est pas toi.
The relationship between the model and the embittered judge does progress, however, when he attends a fashion show.
Vous êtes venu? Vous saviez que l'invitation était de moi?
Je le voulais.
What's read about? I think it's about the slow reopening of the judge's heart, and slow is the critical word, because again, this is not a Hollywood film with big character development. Rather, the judge is slowly brought out of his terminal ennui, and in a brilliant, absolutely brilliant concluding scene, director Kieslowski brings together all of the fragile characters from his previous two films in the series, and I think begs for self-tolerance in the face of the enormous swings of fate that life can present. Life is precarious, Kieslowski is saying. Enjoy what you can, when you can.
You know, I think Red is one of the most absorbing and fascinating films that you could possibly see because, and he said it doesn't go in for the big Hollywood character development. Oddly enough, actually, it's almost a semantic discussion, but it does go in for character development, and Hollywood doesn't. Because in most Hollywood movies, the characters appear fully developed, never change, never grow, never learn, never question themselves, and basically just go straight on ahead, enacting the requirements of the plot. Yeah. In this movie, we start out very intrigued by these people. Who are they? What are they? What makes them work? And then we discover gradually that they're very complex people and that their relationships are going to be much more subtle than we thought. Well, that process is fascinating.
Well, that's the whole difference here. Emotional development here is by the micrometer here. Yeah. I mean, and you study that. And the movies are rich enough, and the precision of being able to see somebody on a big screen almost begs for precision in emotional development. But again, as we say in Hollywood, it's all big stuff.
This is what I would call grown-up filmmaking. This is a movie by an adult, for adults.
When we come back, our video pick of the week, a suspenseful new release about a mysterious young woman.
Hey, Mom, Nabisco Cookies has a winning offer just for you and your kids.
Oreos, Chips Ahoy. Whoa!
Nabisco gives your kids a chance to go on an amazing journey through classic literature with the 20th Century Fox movie, The Pagemaster. You and your kids could win one of 1 million Pagemaster t-shirts.
What's going on?
Look inside the package to see if you've won a free t-shirt from
Nabisco. The Century Plaza, offering the finest in luxury, service, and Southern California style, adjacent to Beverly Hills on LA's fashionable West Side. The Century Plaza Hotel and Tower.
Now it's time for our video pick of the week, and my choice this week is a dark psychological drama named Betty, directed by Claude Chabrol, sometimes known as the French Hitchcock. And this movie is fresh out on video this week. I saw it a year ago. I really loved it. We never got a chance to do it on the show, so this is my chance to do justice to Betty. The movie is based on a story by George Simenon about a young woman who walks into a bar one night and tries to get drunk as fast as she can. Here she is now, played by Marie Trintignant. She doesn't care what happens to her. She's picked up by a man who takes her to another bar where she might have gotten into a lot of trouble if she hadn't been rescued by a rich older woman who was involved with the owner of the bar. This woman, played by Chabrol's former wife, Stéphane Audran, takes Betty to her hotel and sort of adopts her.
J'ai l'impression qu'hier, vous étiez un peu perdu, hein? Vous saviez pas où aller coucher?
Then we learn more about the tangled past lives and relationships of all the characters.
Ce que tu as fait, la façon dont tu as vécu, ça ne me regarde pas.
Moi, j'ai fait des choses vraiment pas belles.
Ça m'intéresse pas.
Tu comprends pas? Ces choses-là, j'ai pris plaisir.
Betty is a mystery to us. Her character is. So The strange situation where she happens to find herself is intriguing. The woman and the bartender seem ready to take care of her, but what is their relationship? There's a brooding sense of alarm and of danger. And whenever a movie makes me really care about what's going to happen next, that for me is a good movie, so Betty is my video pick of the week. Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs up for the very funny and surprisingly effective Junior with Arnold Schwarzenegger, showing once again that he has a comic touch even in the most unexpected situations. 2 thumbs down for the disappointing A Low-Down Dirty Shame with Keenen Ivory Wayans, responsible for a routine exercise in guns and violence. 2 more thumbs down for The Pagemaster with its dreary animation and its lame brain plot. 2 thumbs up, though, for Mrs. Parker in The Vicious Circle and for Jennifer Jason Leigh's wonderful performance as the very funny but very sad Dorothy Parker. And 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up for Krzysztof Kieslowski's Red, with Irene Jacob as a young woman who follows a series of seemingly random events as they lead her into fundamental questions about her life and world. So some good movies this week. Red, Mrs. Parker, and Junior.
Junior for the mass audience, and the trilogy of Blue, White, and Red is something very special. That's it for this week. Next week, we'll be back with reviews of more new movies, including Cobb, starring Oscar winner Tommy Lee Jones as the baseball legend that everyone admired and nobody liked, and Trapped in Paradise, starring Nicolas Cage, Dana Carvey, and John Lovitz as bumbling brothers trying to rip off a small town. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
While you're watching your favorite movies, let Dynamark Security Centers watch your home. Call Dynamark today at 1-800-448-2891. Norelco Silhouette Women's Razors adjust for optimum smoothness and comfort. They're designed to shave a woman where a woman shaves. New Vicks Chloraseptic Cough and Throat Drops for fast, effective relief from your cough or irritated throat. Vicks Chloraseptic, the sore throat experts. It's America's favorite jelly bean, Jelly Belly, now appearing at theaters and video stores with good taste. Jelly Belly beans, try 'em, you'll love 'em.